Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the Men's World Championships Elite Road Race, 274 kilometers from Winterthur to Zurich, and it's starting in the north of Zurich. They do a couple of hard climbs, actually, 3 of them, and then they enter the local laps, which you should be familiar with by now between the previews and the women's recap, including a kicker on the Zurich Bergstrasse, or Zurichstrasse, not really sure the name, Bergstrasse, something like that.
Yep.
800 meters, 8% with the steepest part of the course, 17% pinch. Then 2K, 6% up to Wittercon. Then a rolling plateau, including some punches, a descent, quite fast, and then a few flat sections, but largely it's rolling all the way through this course. They do that lap 6 times. And then there is the flat, long, straight finish in Zurich, along the Zurich, or along the Seestrasse, or Zurich Seestrasse. This episode is brought to you by Join Cycling, as always. Before the race even got going, Benji, a man after my own heart. I think I'm going to have to become a Schelmoser fan. What happened to him?
Well, unfortunately, he had back pain. I think he had a bad move, overnight, and as a consequence, back pain, which resulted in him not feeling too great at the start of today. So he wouldn't know how it goes, but eventually he didn't have very early on in the stage. So he was unfortunately a non-factor in today's race, but it's not just before the race. The second the race started, crashes started coming left and right, and it's not the same weather as the last couple of days. The weather today was pretty sunny, pretty okay. No major rain like in the women's race yesterday, but fast crashes, Bilbao included. He's going on the bike again. Eventually, Alaphilippe crashes off video. We don't see it. Only race radio reports that he leaves the race with a dislocated shoulder. So he's out of the race as well. Was very good at the Canadian Classic. So it's an absolute shame to see that happen. And then Landa crashes as well. Also DNF out of the race. So quite a few riders that may or may not have been able to influence this race, because Bilbao and Alaphilippe, I'm sorry, but that's number 2 and 3 from Montreal behind Pogačar. So they could have finished in the top 10 here, I'm pretty sure. But early breakaway time. And it's not actually they aren't pancakes, these breakaway riders. Sylvain Dillier from Switzerland. The man had more bike changes than I don't know, I was going to make a joke, but the man just had a lot of bike changes. Tobias Vos from Norway. Simon Geschke from Germany. Rui Oliveira from Portugal. Piotr Pekala from Poland. Luc Wirtgen from Luxembourg. And there were 2 other riders, Marcus Pyer from Estonia and Roberto Carlos Gonzalez from Panama. Those last 2 dropped very early, so it was really that 6-man breakaway. And for the majority of the first half of the race, we saw, first of all, Slovenia at the front with, the guy who called an NPC, not Primozic, but the other one. I feel bad for not knowing his name after I saw him on screen today.
You can't criticize me for saying that when you don't even know his name either.
I need to know this
Matic
man's
name. Matic
Zuma. Great job at the front of the peloton, controlling the gap to the breakaway, Mr. Not NPC. And I feel like for the first few laps and the segment before the actual actually until the circuit started, because you said it when you looked at the parkour earlier, you've got the first 3 climbs, which is basically not the circuit, and then we enter that circuit. When the circuit starts, it's not just Slovenia at the front. We see Belgium hitting the front one of the first few laps, and it's Campenaerts really actually upping the tempo on one of the two early climbs on that circuit. I'm not sure if it was Zurich Bergstrasse or the actual Wittercon climb, but the tempo went up. And then you see a few of the riders that you would expect early on in a World Championships, riders from countries that aren't necessarily heavily represented when it comes to their level. And we see quite a few riders drop already, but tempo goes down again after the climb. So it's kind of like tempo goes up, tempo goes down, tempo goes up, tempo goes down, and nothing serious happening. But when was the first proper chasing group formation attack that we saw from the peloton?
I didn't see it, Benji. I went for a run. So I just coming back for it. I was trying to time it just well. Not a lot happened in this race overall, I would say. But yeah, actually a good segue, Benji. I like to alternate my training on Join Cycling, which now adapts to running as well. So I did an hour in the mountains today, which also functions kind of de facto as my strength work. So Been having a pretty good week, consistent on the Lanterne Rouge plan. I've just kept on top of it despite a lot going on this week, also behind the scenes. This is also when everyone who's anyone, which isn't me obviously, but everyone who's anyone is in Zurich at the moment doing deals, finalizing teams, etc., etc. In terms of the world teams, they all congregate there. There's normally the UCI Gala. But yeah, I was, and tomorrow I got a rest day, Monday, take it off, and then Tuesday got reversed. Steigerungs, which I think is a speed skating thing. I think the Steigerungs is common from speed skating. It basically just means you start. It's like a ladder. It's just, what does Steigerung mean? Is it German or Dutch?
I have no clue, but
Luke will know, he speaks
in
German.
Dutch means going up. So I'm guessing it's kind of like I'm doing like a maneuver on the screen right now, so all podcast player listeners are like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
Benji was just paddling like a cocker spaniel
like
hitting that pool for the first time.
Fair. I'm guessing that's it. Paddling like a dog.
I think Luke says it's German and it means increase. I'm going to call it a ladder, so Germans, Steigerung in your language now means ladder.
Basically what I said.
Yeah, German and Dutch is, it's not too far from each other.
Out of here.
It's not. It's not. It is linguistically very similar. Although I think Dutch and English is very close. Anyway, I have that on Tuesday. Wednesday, 5x5 minutes tempo. And then Thursday, just an endurance ride as well. Got a wedding next week, so I'm going to have to work around that availability. And it's not just it's like a 3-day event as well. But luckily with Join, I'm able to adjust my plan on the fly, on the go, and keep my fitness increasing. If you want to check it out yourself, especially the Lanterne Rouge plan, which many of you signed up to, go to Join Cycling in the App Store, download it, and get your 30-day free trial using our code. The first big move, Benji, had my one of my countrymen in it.
Yeah, that is true. Jay Vine was actually the first proper attacker that made that group happen. He attacked on the Zurich Bergstrasse, and we then saw Laurens de Plus, Jan Tratnik, Mattia Cataneo, Kort Nielsen, Sivakov, Williams, Marcus Stonemitten, and Lipovic joining. So a lot of riders basically run one rider per national team. One team that I'm not seeing in this list, Belgium represented, Slovenia represented, Netherlands is not represented. So no teammate from Van der Poel in this group, but look at this team, this chasing group. To repeat, we've got a 6-man group up ahead with Switzerland, Norway, Germany, Portugal, Poland, Luxembourg. None of the big teams. In that chasing group, Belgium and Slovenia are represented with De Plus and Tratnik, but do you have full confidence in Tratnik if you're Slovenia against Cataneo, Kort Nielsen, Sivakov, Williams, Jay Vine, and so forth? Do you have that confidence if you're Belgium? Because De Plus, he's a solid rider, but in a similar situation as Tratnik where I wouldn't have full confidence either. So if you're then the Netherlands, and I'm not in that group, do you bail Belgium and Slovenia out by also starting to pace because you're in a shit position?
I think Netherlands had a defensive and passive plan today. I think their plan was, okay, this is a really hard course. We don't know if Van der Poel can get over it. There's lots of climbs. They're going to ride passive. He's not the favorite. And that's rather how he rides. He races to win by saying, I'm not the favorite, and he's not going to put himself in the favorite position. Even though they didn't have a rider there, they didn't care, because it's like, are Belgium and Slovenia going to really let this race be Tratnik against Stevie Williams or Vine? No, they're not. So,
and if we have looked at Mathieu Van der Poel races in the last year, 2 years, there's been numerous occasions where he had been put on the back foot. And sometimes, for example, at RVV, Alpecin then does everything to get him back to the front. But in other races, I'm pretty sure LBL was one of those races, we then see Van der Poel, okay, well, race is kind of out of my control right now. I'll let it play out. We won't spend our resources trying to fix it, because there's other teams that also have an incentive to close this down. And while they are in a terrible position, other teams are also. So I'm okay with Van der Poel and Netherlands not doing anything after this chasing group. And
because it's always someone will chase.
Yeah, well, that's the example I'm about to give. The gap grows to 3 minutes because that chasing group ends up joining the group 1, the breakaway. And the teams that start to chase behind are Spain and Latvia. Latvia with Tom Skuins as leader, and then Spain with, well, Bilbao's crashed, Landa's crashed out, Aramburu, Adria, Enric Mas. I don't know, like, you wouldn't say it's really their responsibility to do it here either.
Yeah, and they weren't really fully, I didn't think their hearts were really in it either. And eventually, I think Slovenia realized that because Novak starts pulling very hard and the gap starts to decrease. It goes to 2:30. And then I think America do something that's really smart. This is like the key phase of the race now, is 100 Ks to go, entering just after the Zurich Bergstrasse on the main climb, main Wittercon climb. Key phase of the race, 100 Ks to go, and it is... Can I count? The fourth last Wittercon.
Correct.
America have Vermaak ahead, top 10 San Sebastian, top 5 maybe. Good option, good card to play in the group ahead.
Yep.
But the gap has gone down to 2:30. And so if they do nothing, if you just let Novak settle into his Liège-Bastogne-Liège rhythm, he's just going to ride it. And then maybe Roglic will launch the third last or second last Wittercon. And then Pogačar will go, and then you will lose. And then Vermaak has done nothing to help you ahead because the gap is not that big. America try to disrupt the UAE or the Slovenia Novak Pog dynamic. Simmons jumps with Gregoire, with the Frenchie.
Well, first was Asgreen, then Simmons responded to that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there was someone with Simmons or not.
There was a French rider. And I was like, this is smart. Because Slovenia are running out of numbers. It is so far from the finish. And if these second-tier favorite countries get 2-3 riders across into the group ahead, and then Pogačar has no one to chase, now he's really in trouble. And we see actually Pogačar, he's the only person that realizes it. He realizes it. This is why his race sense is so good. Roglic starts following these moves.
Yeah.
And Slovenia have suddenly got nobody. Novak's disappeared. And so it's like, you can disrupt their rhythm. Novak's disappeared. And Roglic is the last guy. Tratnik's ahead. 100 Ks to go. Pogačar starts sliding up the group. And Van der Poel sees him move up. Doesn't follow him up the Wittercon. Doesn't follow.
Yeah.
Remco's started really deep. Remco's and Belgium, they're asleep. Completely asleep. Van Gils sees Pogačar jump, by the way. Van Gils sees it.
Yeah.
Because I went back and looked at the tape. Pogačar then accelerates. And I think Pogačar was... There's no way when he jumps with 100 Ks to go, he believes he's going to go solo. He believes that Van der Poel and Remco will go with him and that it will be Tour of Flanders 2023. They will relay for a lap. They will get across to the group. Tratnik will pull for a lap. And then with 40 Ks, 30 Ks to go, he will drop them all. That's what I think he's trying to do. Rather than getting isolated.
Yeah. I agree with you. But also because we do see him looking back a few times when that is happening. Then again, does what he does next counter that argument a little bit? Because when he does make his attack, the move that he's doing here, which initially seemed like an attack at 60%, then seemingly at 70%, then maybe 75, 80%. In no way it's an attack at 100%, in my opinion, at this point. And we see Bajoli trying to follow, Simmons trying to follow. Seems like O'Connor tried to follow, but the gap between him and Pogačar was too large for it to close it and not go in the red, etc. So we've got Pogačar, Bajoli, and Simmons, but Pogačar keeps going then. So he keeps going, dropping Simmons, dropping Bajoli by the top of that climb. Does that not counter the idea of, okay, I'm trying to get away with a group?
It is... Yeah, I think he then realizes, and this is again good, his race smarts. When your enemies are making a mistake, I don't know if this is Sun Tzu. I'm going to say it's Sun Tzu. I'm going to make it up. When your enemies are making a mistake, put your foot on their throat and kill them. I don't think that's the actual quote. But basically, it's like, if they're going to let me go for free, then fuck them. I got Tratnik ahead. And listen, this race is decided. I don't want to hear about the last 40 Ks, last 60 Ks. This race is decided in the 5 minutes from when Pogačar jumps. That's the race. I'll explain why in a second. Go and look at the tape. I went back and looked. Belgium do not put anyone on the front for at least 3 minutes. Van Gils is there. They have 3 in the first 10 wheels. Through the feed zone when Pogačar's ahead, they do not put... People are jumping. The pace is out of the group. The pace is out of the group. Simmons jumps again. America are jumping, and maybe America could have pulled. So they give Poggy 30 seconds for free, essentially. And that's it.
Yep. And we got to keep in mind, I also don't believe Pogačar would have gone with this move if Tratnik wasn't ahead. I think that's a very vital aspect here. Not only is that a physical advantage to have someone that can pace you, that can wait for you, that can satellite rider you, but also a mental... you've got the confidence, okay, if I have a weak moment, I've still got someone up there, you know? So that's an extra thing for which he definitely decided, according to that, okay, I can actually make this move possible. At Pogačar attack, but they didn't. Well, they took 2-3 minutes to hit the front of the peloton. How much of that can be radio related? If Van Gils has seen it.
No, I think Remco saw Pog attack.
Remco was in P40 at the top of the climb.
Okay.
I think Remco was completely in Narnia.
Yeah, I mean, Van der Poel in the Netherlands, and this is why the Pog attack works so successfully, is because there's 3 big favourites to the race: Pogačar, Netherlands, Belgium, Van der Poel, Remco. When Belgium don't immediately take over, why is the USA gonna put 3 guys on the front immediately to rotate behind Pog? Why is Great Britain gonna do that? Why is Australia gonna do that? They're not gonna do that. They're like, well, Belgium's here, and Van der Poel, I think he's thinking, I can get Belgium to do it, because the Netherlands don't come to the front at pace at all. So maybe he knew, but I think Van der Poel's plan today was to treat Remco like Wout, let Remco do the donkey work, see if Van der Poel could get around the course, and then try and win.
And for me, the vital part comes a bit later as well. We see that Belgium team going through the riders they have one by one, and we see Hermans, for example, pacing, etc. The gap is being kept at, let's say, 50, 60 seconds. In the meanwhile, Tratnik has waited from the breakaway, has dropped to Pogačar, and has brought Pogačar to the front. Then Pogačar even goes too fast for the breakaway at a certain point, has to wait for the breakaway again because he wants to have more than one rider just himself at this point in the race. But Belgium goes through their riders, and in the third last lap, we start to go towards the Zurich Bergstrasse again. And yes, in the breakaway, we do see a move that we are expecting. Pogačar can't keep riding at the tempo that this breakaway is riding, otherwise the Belgian team will catch up with him. So Tratnik keeps pacing, Pogačar launches in G1 on that Zurich Bergstrasse. Only Vermarke and Sivakov can follow. Vermarke eventually drops as well. It's only Sivakov. And over the top, Pogačar goes a bit too fast again, that he drops Sivakov and eventually has to wait over the top for Sivakov again. But in the peloton, Belgium's getting lost when it comes to numbers, to the point that the plus is dropping back from that breakaway he was in initially to the peloton. Does like a 5-second pull, and then it's Wellens. And the weird thing for me is the gap is 50 seconds right now on the Zurich Bergstrasse. Why does Wellens decide to do a rolling attack instead of directly starting to pace at this moment? That makes no sense.
Not sure. But to me, the race was over. Because the race is over. Firstly, Tratnik's going to pull basically at the speed of the Belgian domestiques. And he's basically going to neutralize them. So that time you're given to Poggi, it's basically netted off. And I would say then Pogačar is recovering in the wheels the same as Remco. But he's got a 40-second, 50-second buffer. And then the inevitable consequences, Belgium were bad today, let's be honest, Benji. Like, yeah. I think they really were poor. Benoit, Wellens, Van Gils, Stuyven, really
Didn't
bad.
See him.
And
to the point, the situation that was created causes the fact that on the climb after that Zurich Bergstrasse, we see Wellens eventually starting to pace after he rolls an attack because they realize, okay, we need to keep pacing and maybe try and set something up. But then they do basically a lead out with Wellens, then Van Gils starts to pace. If you have to start burning Maxime Van Gils, which should be a co-leader for this parkour for the Belgian team at 74 kilometers to go, then you know something's wrong. Then you know you fucked up already.
But it was too late. I was literally, when the gap was 30 seconds, I was literally like, even when Belgium were pulling Benji, it's crazy the cognitive dissonance, because like everyone knows, and they're like, you're a Pogačar hater. It's like, there's no one in the world more scared of Pogačar than me. Fucking keeps me up at night all year. No one more scared of him. Seriously. Because like, he's the best rider in the world. And I was watching Belgium just putting one guy on the front, holding the gap stable at 30 seconds. I was like, are you not aware of the gravity of this situation? I was like, you better fucking blow through these guys, get that gap down to 20 seconds, and Remco better jump before Poggy jumps, or this is a wrap. And they didn't. They sort of slowly cycled through them. And yeah, Van Hils is pulling Benji. I'm like... And it also explains sort of from a physical point of view, then when Remco jumps, and that's then what happens, I can't remember exactly where it was, and then Poggy goes clear.
I do want to talk about that moment.
Sorry, yes.
I also have an alternative thought towards you, for example, where you say you got to try and do a massive lead out for the gap to go down to 20 seconds to launch Evenepoel. I think the other option is the exact extreme opposite.
Oh, pace slow.
Which is not pace slow, but keep control and not burn your riders in the span of a half a lap, and hope that the Netherlands start spacing with you too, because they still had 9 riders going into the third last lap. And that's all. It's another potential thing, but it's also because you are burning your riders and attacking with Evenepoel, when the gap is 40 seconds on that Rietikon climb in the third last lap, you're also making sure that the group is basically only leaders and countries with maybe multiple riders from countries that will try and roll attacks on Evenepoel for a medal in the first place. So for me, the race was over the second that Evenepoel attacked.
Yes, because he's attacking not off a hard pace in a hard moment. So you're not going to drop everybody. Yeah. And he's attacking into a gap that's too big to bridge in one sort of fell swoop. So the inevitable happens. He attacks. The group is 10 riders, 8 riders, let's say. They're also on the limit. There's riders now more isolated, although Mollema was there a lot of the Netherlands. And then none of them are going to cooperate because you just attacked them. I think that's why I think the best chance was to do a full lead out and try and go with Van der Poel and maybe a Schoens, and then you can relay 3 up.
How much does not knowing the time gap from the peloton impact what these riders are doing in that situation?
I think a little bit.
I don't think it's an excuse, because you should be aware, like you say, of the gravity of the situation of Pogačar attacking. That's not just, it's not like Søren Kragh Andersen attacking on the what is that climb, the Kortekeer before you get to the Tyenberg in E3 early on. That's not the same situation. We've got your facial reaction to me mentioning Søren Kragh Andersen. I'm not sure where that went, but like, it's not the same. The difference in gravity of the situation is different. It's Pogačar attack. It's like Remco Evenepoel attacking.
Yeah. And maybe there's also the answer, Benji, that Remco didn't have it today. Maybe he just didn't have it. And maybe, you know who was missing today? Maybe Wout van Aert. Not he. Maybe
yes.
Like, I think Wout van Aert makes a big difference to today. Like, and he's been the guy that when Van der Poel opened the Olympic road race, Wout van Aert was on his wheel, not Remco. Remco was out of position, then Remco came back choo-chooed away. So it's but just to explain then, so Remco's there in a group, and I was like, this is a wrap, because the other guys are scared of Van der Poel and Remco. Van der Poel is never going to eat all his plate. He just doesn't do it in a chase group. He just refuses to do it, which in the long run is probably the smart thing to do. Remco doesn't want to pull everybody because he's not just so superior to everybody legs-wise, but everyone's looking at Remco, and so there's just stop-start attacks from like with 2 hours to go. And you can say, but Poggy's ahead.
Syndrome.
It took over so very early, didn't it? But you could say, okay, Poggy is ahead. It's a disadvantage, no draft. For sure, that you could have some good sections with draft on this course, but I would love to see the files I can guarantee you Pogačar's normalized power on that third last lap is not that different to the normalized power of that group, which means what I'm trying to say is Poggy's riding, he has to ride a steady tempo, doesn't have to accelerate above a certain number, he just runs steady tempo the whole time at threshold, takes a gel, takes a bit on when he wants. The group behind, they're not pedaling, they're responding to attacks at 1,000 watts, they're not pedaling, they're surging, and in the end, the physical cost is actually not that different.
And not just in the third last lap, but also in the fourth last lap, when Pogačar makes that attack, it's a 10-minute effort before he gets to Tratnik. Maybe not even 10 minutes. I didn't calculate it, but and after that, you're not going to tell me he's burning up in the wheel of Tratnik either. So for me, that's also recovery in the wheel of Tratnik that he's doing, trying to get back to that breakaway first group. So I also don't think in the fourth last lap that the difference in normalized power is huge between Pogačar and the rest. I think it was a pretty, I won't say eco mode, but not a major investment to get a serious advantage on the others in a matter of 1.5 laps, and a good luck trying to get the opposite to work, because when we get to the second last lap, we've got Pogačar still with Sivakov in the wheel, and he ends up dropping Sivakov, and the group behind, we keep seeing those Group 2 syndrome desperate attacks to create a Group 2, because a lot of riders are thinking, okay, if I can get ahead of this group, I might be able to go for a medal here. Or if we can work together, we might be able to get back in a more cooperated fashion to Pogačar. Meanwhile, Patrick is running around in his office trying to hunt for flies, and I think it's going very unsuccessfully, looking at the way he's still staring around and waving around the little fly thingy. Anyway, a Group 2 gets created. Tom Squins, Ben Healy, Oscar Onley. I gotta give major props once again to Tom Squins, because Latvia took it upon themselves to pace earlier in the race, but to see Squins once again after Strade Bianche, after Edri Harelbeke, get into a situation like this where he's basically fighting for the podium in a major classic, which the World Championships, I'd argue, definitely is. That's lovely to see. Healy as well anticipating in such a move. Oscar Onley, nice to see as well. The gap grows to a minute though, and eventually Onley does get dropped by Squins and Healy. But what do we see in that third group? Because I feel like Remco was definitely getting frustrated, but in doing so, he seems to get frustrated because of the fact that not every single rider in that group wants to cooperate with him, which is never going to happen.
And he was he was attack pacing. You know what I mean? Like on the flat, he'd really surge. It's not a full blown attack, but it's not normal pacing. Flick the elbow, and everyone's like, "Come on!" And also, but there was also like Jorgensen, and it's again like, should I get? Sometimes I'll do a little political analogy, which we try to steer clear of. Sometimes the media likes to keep us focused on small things that don't really matter. And that's, for example, when Matteo Jorgensen is like, but I have Kevin Vermarker 3 seconds ahead of you, Remco. I can't pull. And I'm like, okay, but unemployment just went up 50%. Pogačar's got a minute gap, so I think we should all work together here. Like there was a lot of that going on, like playing out, I got this teammate style. Guys, what are we doing?
Yeah. Especially because Remco's frustrations actually started hindering the group at certain moments, because Van der Poel gets to the front, is pacing. Remco is annoyed that the other guys aren't pacing, so he lets the gap behind Van der Poel open up, and in doing so, Van der Poel gets a gap, gets to Only, who was dropped by Squins and Healy, and then someone else or Remco himself has to close down Van der Poel eventually. Like, they're all playing around like this for the next X amount of kilometers. This is typical Group 2 syndrome, and this was the World Championships of Group 2 syndrome, and we said it already. Race was over at 72 kilometers to go, and it wasn't looking like it was going to get any better, because the gap towards that group was 1 minute 20 in the second last lap. And then we hit the final lap, and a spark of hope rises across the horizon. We see the staff of Gandalf like in the Two Towers. The gap started going down slowly but surely from a minute to 50 seconds to 40 seconds to the Squins group. Pogačar seemingly washed, but not really.
Nah, that wasn't happening. I felt sorry for Squins and Healy. They were valiant. Like, Squins basically was doing 80% of the pulling. Squins basically did the same pace as Pogačar for 1.5 laps. But yeah, they got caught and the gap started to come down. But then everyone's also cooked, and it's like they've done a huge effort to even get to that place. And yeah, like Rob Hatch was telling us to witness greatness, to remind us you will enjoy 3 hour solos. You will enjoy it.
But I gotta give credit to Adam Blythe though, because he's the complete opposite.
Blythe's like done.
Extreme.
It's done, brother. Give it up.
It was like watching two extremes commentate.
Yeah.
We've got Adam Blythe saying it's done, and we've got Rob Hatch trying to squeeze the.
It's
the
only
last
400
bit of
meters. It's
lemon
like,
juice.
yes, they're uphill, dude. It's not getting caught. What are you doing? We need Vingegaard. Take him out of wherever the fuck he is. Put him on a bike and say, "Hey, you got to catch Pogačar uphill, like on stage 11." That wasn't happening.
But it's a one-day race, so
1-day race, so he would have abandoned first lap. So the so Pogačar goes clear. Yes, he looked like he was a little bit. Of course he was suffering, man. Of course he was suffering. He did 100k solo, but he's still stronger than everybody else. And I got to say, it's one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen. And it's definitely the best season I've ever seen. Pogačar goes clear to win the World Championships, to do the Triple Crown. I don't know why it's called the Triple Crown, but the Giro, Tour de France, and World Championships triple. And there was no one else that... I guess, well, not only no one else deserved it more, but like the way he also did it stamped his authority as that I'm the best rider here. Because the thing is, like, if he could have won this 10 different ways. 10 different ways he could have won this.
But I must say, I feel like the words, it's always a trope, it's a cliche, but you got to be willing to lose a race to win a race. That's something Pogačar does have, you know? Like, choosing to make that...
Oh, Benji's gone robot. I think Benji's internet's no good.
Hello? Did I perish?
Yeah, I think the Netherlands ordered a hit on your internet after the Belgian was gloating too much about Kopecky winning yesterday. But yeah, like, you got to be willing to lose it. That being said, I think what he did, it's not actually that stupid. You go ahead, your teammate waits, you get Sivakov to work with you a bit, they give you 30 seconds for free, Group 2 syndrome starts to take over, Van der Poel and Remco ride against each other. In the end, it's not so stupid. And when you're the best on the course anyway, I would say this tactic probably didn't give him the highest win probability. I think if they did another lap with Roglic controlling, and then he launches to Tratnik 1 lap later, I think he wins by a minute 30 probably. But he did slow down for sure on the last lap. Back in the group behind, we saw Hirschi attacking. They're all attacking each other. I really was hoping for a Schoens medal, but it wasn't to be. And Ben O'Connor gets away. I think maybe one of the most underrated riders of this season still, and he wins. He takes second after the group attacked each other a million times. 34 seconds behind Pog. Schoens goes for the long sprint, and Van der Poel tracks him down, and he takes third. Schoens fourth, Remco fifth, Hirschi sixth, Healy seventh, and Ricky Mas was very strong. He attacked on the last Witticon eighth. Aruja Adri was good too, so Spain, I would say, had a good race. Simmons ninth, Bardet 10th, Adri 11th, Mollema 12th. I will say I found the way that the Netherlands use Mollema like strange. I thought there was a point where they should have just got him on the front to pull all out. But they didn't.
In the same way that Wellens rolled an attack at that moment before he started pacing, Mollema kept attacking for the next 10, 15 kilometers, which made no sense. They should have put him at the front and started pacing in a similar fashion as Belgium decided to do the same. So I agree, great to see him at this level, but tactically, no good. But anyway, that being said, the way Pogačar won, super impressive. But also, it's also credits to the Slovenian team around him. They are like, yes, they burned through their team quickly, sure. But you got to be aware of that strength and act accordingly. And that's what they did, right?
Use it or lose it. Like, keep control of the race for as long as you can. And then when you're running out of numbers, attack before someone else attacks you. And that's what Pogačar did. and he caught everyone napping, caught them by surprise, and they didn't react at all. And he wins because he's also the strongest. So there's not much more to say, I don't think. It was a pretty straightforward race, to be honest, like 100k to go solo, and then group 2, a bunch of guys attacking each other. There was
How would you rate it?
As like an entertainment product.
Yes, compared to the last couple of years. For example, Glasgow, or the year before, which was where the fuck was the World Championships 2 years ago? It wasn't in Leuven. That was the year before that, right? Wollongong. Australia.
Wollongong, yeah. Wollongong was pretty bad.
Yeah.
I would say this was pretty frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, people keep, like, I know people keep saying, but this is, you have to witness greatness, etc. I understand that, but like the numbers are the numbers, and we see it because we see our own numbers. The audience attention or interest in the recaps, both video for my Roubaix video or podcast recaps on these races with long solos or a dominant winner, they're like really bad compared to like the 5 years from doing the podcast. Like people are not interested. Maybe they're interested in watching the race and they don't need a recap of 100k solo or 80k solo. But
it's also
there was no radios in the race. I don't think that. And again, it's like competitive balance is what makes a race interesting. A lack of control from teams is what makes a race interesting. A lack of radios is not making any difference either way.
It just blindsides teams that don't know what is going on as a consequence of that. And I gotta be honest, also the passing of Muriel also kind of ruined the World Championships for me to begin with. Like, I was disinterested for a few days in the sport of cycling because of what happened, because I feel so frustrated with how the sport is run on a safety side of things. We went into it in depth in the last 10 minutes of yesterday's podcast. I think it's a must listen, but it takes away from being able to enjoy the entertainment side of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's not to say that like Pogačar did anything wrong. No, it's just you can accept what it is.
Him.
Yeah,
you can just and found out.
Accept what it is, which is like it's of course not as entertaining as the 3 big guns going hammer and tongs against each other in the final lap, or a good race before that. So yeah, that's the World Champs. There was also Van der Poel hopped on a curb. Which Luke Rowe got disqualified for in Flanders. There were people standing there, and he just hopped up there. Did she? Yeah, but there's
if you go on a footpath,
it was
in
dangerous
a cycling
too.
Race, there's 2 penalties that can count. The first one is 200 Swiss francs to 1,000 Swiss francs plus 20 points of UCI, or if it's very serious and you endanger people, they disqualify. For me, what Van der Poel did today, going on a curb to pass people, to be able to respond to, I think, Jorgensen or Simmons, who decides to make a move, and in doing so, almost hitting a photographer. Yes, Van der Poel has amazing skill level, but that's irrelevant in this situation. So,
watching it now, he nearly gets his second assault charge against a teenager. There's a there's a kid
this is disqualification.
There's a kid has to move out of the way wearing a football shirt. So yeah,
and the UCI doesn't apply, which is once again an example of inconsistent rule applications because someone is much of Van der Poel in this situation.
Yeah, of course, they're not going to disqualify MVDP. I mean, maybe if he came 5th, sure, but nah, not going to take a medal away from MVDP.
It should happen in the race anyway. If they do it at the end of the race, it's too late because he influenced the race from that point.
He's affected the outcome of the race, yeah.
Because rider safety is a priority, but spectator safety is important too, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can't have people jumping out of the way because someone's hopped a curb where they're standing. Like it is true that the riders, but then you have to hold them to account. So. Okay, what's next, Benji? Oh, do you want to sum up the World Champs? I guess this is the World Champs overall recap too.
Honestly, Pogačar winning a World Championships, a rainbow jersey, was inevitable in his career, in my opinion.
He had to do it.
especially this year, it's probably a nice thing to see that combination with Giro and Tour victory, because now he's got the best possible season that I can imagine in my history of watching cycling, if not ever. He is the best cyclist ever. So it's fully a rider that I want to see in the rainbow jersey, because he's going to be at the front of the races every single time next year. So I love that. From outside of that, seeing Kopecky win, same situation. I love that. Belgium team sucked today. I'm sorry, but they didn't deserve a medal for the way they were fully asleep with 100 kilometers to go. I'm sorry, but there's 4 climbs you need to watch out for in the last 100 kilometers. And to be asleep on one of them in such a major way, to not be able to respond to the favorite of the race going out of the front, you fucked it. So no, I've got no mercy there. They bottled it. That being said, at the end of the day, Remco seemingly didn't have it anyway, but that doesn't mean much for the tactical failure with 100 kilometers to go either. So that goes both ways. Netherlands, Van der Poel got a medal in the end, which on a parkour that is this hard is pretty nice to see. Very passive racing, but I don't know, they missed the move initially. Like, I don't think they'll be happy fully with their race either. I think there's a world in which Van der Poel wins this World Championships, but I don't think you can blame them too hard either, you know? Because I feel like Belgium is the country that fucked up the most tactically in this race. Now, outside of that, what happened? Like, I don't think this was the best World Championships I've seen in my life. Like,
well, it rained the whole time, and then yeah. So, but they keep designing these punchy circuits. So Pog will be the favorite next year, I think. When are we going to see a sprinters world champs again?
Next year's parkour is pretty damn hard. We've got basically it's Rwanda World Championships next year, and in doing so, we've got on the parkour laps in the Kigali region. And we're not actually doing the Mude Kigali every lap. We're doing it once in the middle of the race. But it's apparently the hardest World Championships we've seen.
Okay.
So 5,000 plus altitude meters, I'm pretty sure.
Damn. And then
or close to it.
There could be a flat one with isn't there an Emirates World Champs in like 5 years?
I don't know, man. They had like a whole list of things. There's also a Copenhagen one. I'm sorry, but I love Danish people, and I want to see more cycling. I want to see a World Tour race in Denmark, which is going to happen next year with the Copenhagen Sprint. But the problem about that is that Copenhagen is probably the worst part of Denmark to have a cycling race, and I feel that like Danish people will agree with that.
Yeah, I saw Danish people saying don't have it in the city. Yeah.
So if the World Championships is in Copenhagen too, I'm sorry, but there's better places in Denmark that I want to see in a cycling race. And Brussels, I don't know what to expect from that in 2030. They want to celebrate 200 years of Belgium existing. I'm going to celebrate that with a bag of frites, and I'm going to be happy enough with that. But I don't know what other countries are coming.
I don't even know. We've got an Albanian Giro next year. What else we got?
Is that happening, or was I gonna last minute switch around?
It's rumored. Then otherwise we've got Lombardia coming up. So of course you'll all have. I assume you all got up early to watch Tour de Langkawi Stage 1 today. Gleb Syriza won that race. We've also got Crow Race starting this week. I'm not sure the start list. It doesn't have Jonas like it did a couple of years ago, but that is where Johnny Milan showed himself for the first time really to the world as how versatile he was. So these small races are worth watching. Aular is there recently announced for Movistar. Ganna's there. It's almost like a punishment. It's like, fuck, you don't have him do Roubaix, but you're going to do Crow Race. I guess he can't pull the I got no legs like he did in Deutschland, because they saw his TT and like, you are in good shape. You're going to go to Crow Race and you will lead out Elia Viviani. So we got that going on. And then, Lombardia after, of course, Giro dell'Emilia. So we got next, is it Wednesday or Friday that they have Emilia?
Question.
Saturday.
We've seen Ganna sprint a few times in the last year. last 2 years? In a Vuelta sprint, would you trust Viviani or Ganna better at this point?
Ganna for sure. What do you mean?
I agree.
Viviani, I think, won a Crow race stage last year.
Oh, okay, fair, I guess.
But it was like a super lead out from Kim Hajduk from memory. That is, don't know how I remember that. No, it wasn't. It was someone else did lead out. Giro dell'Emilia next Saturday. We're going to see these stars back in action again. Evenepoel, Pogačar, Roglic on the start line. This is the big one. Pogačar's not been able to win yet. I would argue a bigger gap in his palmares than the world champs today. And so can he beat finally Roglic in Giro dell'Emilia or Enrique Mas? Enrique Mas he's looking good for the Emilia again. After today, I might have to go with Enrique. He's looking scary good.
Mate, we all know that Enrique Mas is going to end up second in Lombardia. Is going to end up second or third in Emilia. And we're hyping
He won
him
Emilia.
up. I love the guy, but yeah, okay, fair. He won Emilia. I forgot about that one.
He stepped off Poggy. But yeah, that's what we got. Giro dell'Emilia and Tre Valli Varesine. So we got some good 3 Italian high-level classics to look forward to. Hopefully Emilia's televised, because that's been the problem in recent years, is being able to view that outside of Italy. But I think that's all. Pogačar seals history, fulfills the prophecy, and wins his first world championships, and seals the greatest cycling season ever. I think probably ever. So that's yeah.
And it's not done yet.
It's not done yet. We still got another monument to go, and we've got NFL Red Zone kicking off in a short while to look forward to. Thanks for listening as always. Thanks. What do you mean, okay? You want to see competitive balance?
Don't even remember what sport it is, mate.
It's ice hockey, like I told you. Thanks for joining cycling as always, and we'll see you with something this week. We'll cook something up. Until then, ciao.